I'm back in my abandoned house that's deep in the mountains of Tohoku. I have dusted off my old World War II radio that is somehow still working. This thing is being held together by hopes and dreams. And this house, this haunted house, still creaks. It's unexplained noises, doors shutting for no reason. It's not even windy up here. But there is one thing that worries me, is this woman that stalks me. No, not my wife, but this other woman. She walks past the window. She thinks I can't see her, and she's probably aware of where I am, but she just lurks around. She doesn't come in, but she just walks around. She wanders the street at night with her surgical mask covering her face and her vacant eyes, roaming around looking for her next victim. Her long trench coat. And when she sees you, she will ask you one question. Watashi wa kirei? Or, am I beautiful? And if you say yes, she will pull off her mask and show you the slits that open from ear to ear, like a torn curtain revealing something that should have stayed hidden. And if you say no, well, she'll still cut you. And there's no confirmed way of getting away from her. But I've kept her at bay with candy. Yeah, that's an odd one. Just throw candy at her. So she is the Kuchisake Onna, or the slit-mouthed woman. An old Toshidensetsu, or urban legend, that has plagued Japan for eons. But in the 1970s, schools across Japan had actually closed early for some reason. And there were reports of a slit-mouthed woman abducting children. Parents walked their kids home, picked them up from school, took them to school. Students went in groups, and there were sightings. There were many sightings. And the issue with this in Japan, masks are a thing. Even long before Corona, people wore masks. And this helps her hide amongst the normal people, because a mask just doesn't stand out here. So she's still out there, and I mean, I can see her right now, and I know she's wanting to ask me that one simple, deadly question. Am I beautiful? Watashi wa kirei? And with that, while she hangs around outside eating my candy, I'm going to be talking about the very first Sentai called Himitsu Sentai Goranger. And this is what started the Sentai series in Japan. This show came out in 1975 and ran for 84 episodes, the longest Sentai to date. Most Sentai seasons run about roughly 50 episodes. This was the very first one, so it was setting the standard for running for about a year. That's the normal bit, but this one ran for a year and a half. Um, almost, well, no, 2 years. Wait, let's see. Carry the two. Yeah, 2 years. Because it was April of 75 when it started, and then it ended in March of 77. See, I'm good at math. No, I'm not. And so, about 2 years this ran, 84 episodes. And as I mentioned, it's the very first of the Sentai franchise. It was created by Ishinomori Shotaro. And he created the first two, this one and the one that came after this called Jaka. And I will talk about that in another episode whenever I get around to it. And Goranger is definitely dated if you look back on it now. But that's part of the charm. And I'm assuming you know what Sentai is if you're listening to this episode. And if you don't, I would be surprised. But if you know Power Rangers, that is Sentai. A lot of us, just for simplicity's sake, we call it Japanese Power Rangers, just to give you a better idea on what the Sentai is. Even though that Sentai is what spawned Power Rangers. And if there was no Goranger, then there would be no Judanger, which would come later in 1992. And if there's no Judanger, then there's no Power Rangers. So this would make waves all throughout history. Although wouldn't be known just how earth-changing this would be. So Goranger, you got the 5 Rangers, and I'm going to call them Rangers because that is actually part in the name, but just again for simplicity's sake. So you got the 5 Rangers, red, blue, yellow, green, and pink. And this Sentai, well, a lot of the Showa Sentai, the early Sentai, are a lot darker and a little bit more mature in a sense, because of what they don't really hold back their punches too much with what they have. And some later Sentai will go further, and especially Jaka with one particular episode, which I'm going to have fun talking about when I talk about Jaka. So the plot of this, just like if you watch Power Rangers, you got the 5 Rangers, Monster of the Week, but this isn't the teenagers with attitude angle that Power Rangers took. This is 5 military operatives who work for Eagle. And Eagle stands for Earth Guard League, the EA in Earth, G from Guard, and LE from League. Or in Japanese, they call it the Kokusai Teki Heiwa Soshiki Iguru. And they're a defense organization. And then all's well and good until the Black Cross Army shows up, the Kuro Jujigun. And in the very first episode, you have the Black Cross Army sending their stormtroopers, their foot soldiers, and their generals out to the 5 headquarters of Eagle all throughout Japan. And they flat out kill people. And they legitimately kill them in various means, usually with explosives, or they gun them down, but they actually kill them. And from each of these branches, there's one survivor, and and I'm sure you can see where this is going. Each one of those survivors become one of the Go Rangers. So you have uh, Tsuyoshi Kaijo, who, or I guess in the Japanese way, be Kaijo Tsuyoshi, um, and he is Akaranger, the Red Ranger. You have Shinmei Akira, who is the Owl Ranger, the Blue Ranger. Oiwa Daita is the Ki Ranger, or the Yellow Ranger. Asuka Kenji is the Midori Ranger, or the Green Ranger. And then you have Matsuyama Peggy, who is the Momo Ranger, or Pink Ranger. See, back then, Momo was the word they would use for pink. But now they just kind of say pink, the katakana English. So they call her Momo Ranger instead of just Pink Ranger. So those are the 5 Rangers. And they all are their sole survivors of their respective branches, and they come together to form the Go Rangers. And they spend the 84 episodes fighting the Black Cross Army and the Black Cross Fuhrer. And that's his name, the Fuhrer. And just like if you've watched Power Rangers, it's the monster of the week, and they're not so detailed. They're typically just a humanoid, a guy in a suit, and like, this is cheap, by the way, wearing like some odd mask, and this mask, and the generals are called something mask. So you have like the gold mask, bronze mask, jade mask, horn mask, wing mask, rainbow mask, wire mask, door mask. So yeah, they're all just whatever, and then masks. And one of them, called Gunman Mask, his head is the shape of a gun. And oddly enough, one of the most famous generals from this, Baseball Mask, his head is a baseball, go figure. He's probably the most recognizable of the masked generals. Don't know why. He wasn't that special in the show, but he is. Whenever they do an anniversary or whatever, he's the one they pick from Go Ranger. So they fight the Black Cross Army for these 84 episodes, and there was one point in the show where they replaced the Yellow Ranger. So Kumano Daigoro came in to replace Daita. And so he took over for a handful of episodes. And the reason for this in real life was that the actor, Hatake Yamabaku, who played Daita, he had to leave the show to do some other production. So it was a schedule conflict. And so he was going to return later, but us watching the TV show at that time didn't know that. So in the story, they wrote him off as being reassigned to the Kyushu branch of Eagle. So he's gone for a handful of episodes. So he's replaced. And they were kind of trying to set the Yellow Ranger to be like this bigger guy who was, I don't want to say he was Daita was the comedic relief of the group. Yeah, he was amusing, kind of stupid, always eating curry, and but that was just him. And they kind of attempted to do that with Daigoro, but it didn't quite work very well. Just another bigger guy, and you can tell it just didn't fit right. But in one episode, he dies. Daigoro dies, and he goes out like a champ. He goes down swinging, and getting impaled, and so he dies. And in that same episode, Daita is brought to the battlefield, and it was a nice entrance for him. And I was actually happy that to see him come back in this fashion, and it wasn't just him coming back the next episode or something. But no, he came up seconds, you know, later, and so he transforms into the Yellow Ranger again, and so he's back permanently. And so during that era, they did not hesitate to show them killing off Rangers, killing off the heroes, which is something Power Rangers did not do, not until years later. So Goranger, was definitely in its own time, and it can be very jarring for those of us from the West who did not grow up in that era, and we were used to Power Rangers, that type of kid friendliness, and even newer Sentai is more kid friendly now, but there's still some levels of maturity that gets thrown in there. But in the older Sentai, they didn't hesitate, because they'll do this more often in later Sentai. So you have the five Rangers, part of Eagle, and they, when they transform, there's no great special effects or anything. This is just something that they end up doing for a few different Sentai. And they just spin around, and the camera cuts, and they're supposed to be in their Go Ranger outfits, and it works. It doesn't have to be something flashy or ungodly long. I'm looking at you, Cosmic Fury. Way too long of a morphing sequence for that. And so they just spin around, and that's it. And they don't touch on really on how it happens, like how they get the powers exactly. They just do it. But there is one episode where Peggy is drugged, I believe, and she can't transform, and like she's having a hard time focusing. Like there's something that's messing with her mentally, and she can't transform, and she has to really focus and get herself squared, get herself straight before she can do it. So there is something there, but they don't go into detail with it, and that's all it is. So, and so they hang out at this snack bar, and like that's the cover for their base. And there'll be several times that the Black Cross Army comes into the snack bar, and the Rangers are right there, and they don't, they the army has ideas, but they can't prove anything. So I don't know why they don't just blow up the place, because they are the bad guys, and they have spent all season blowing up places. But they're looking for the Ranger base, and which is underneath the snack bar. And they eventually do blow it up, and they blow up that section of the city, but the snack bar later gets rebuilt. Anyway, so the Rangers, the Go Rangers, they have their secret headquarters. They got their mentor, who is the same guy who cooks the curry. I am losing my voice for some reason. And so he cooks them curry. Well, he tends to cook Daita the curry, who eats it all. And they he gives them the orders, or he lets them know how to work, how to use their, or he gives them like their new vehicles if the old ones get destroyed. So the very balloon is one of their vehicles, and which it is not a giant robot. It is basically a, I don't want to say it's not really a helicopter per se. It's got propellers, but it's not a helicopter in the traditional sense. Um, but it's got a lot of propellers, and but that's like their thing. And usually it's the Blue Ranger that pilots it, and it gets destroyed in episode 40 something. In the late in the season, late in the series, it gets, or no, that would be midway through the series. This isn't, goddamn, halfway through the series. This is not a 50 episode. This is 84. This is why they call me Tayori Nai. Halfway through the series, it gets destroyed and replaced by the Varidorin. And that is also another, you know, flying machine. This one looks more like a plane, but still has a lot of propellers, but it has wings. Um, so, but again, it's not a giant robot. It doesn't transform into a giant robot. It's just a plane type of thing, and it's what will destroy or not destroy, because they usually use it to rain havoc down on the Black Cross Army, whether it be a base or whatever. The way that they destroy the monsters is with their Ranger Storm, uh, a ball, and it's it's not what you would expect. And so they got their Go Ranger Storm, or the Go Ranger Hurricane, and it's a ball that they all kick, and like each kick would be like them putting some sort of power into it, and then they kick it into they hit the monster with it, and the monster blows up. And in some episodes, you will see the monster screaming, surrounded by flames, and it's wonderful, good time. They do have their own individual weapons, which the Red Ranger's is not a sword. It is a whip. And he's got some variations with it. But it's typically, it's a whip style weapon. The Blue Ranger's got the Blue Cherry, the bow and arrow. The Yellow Ranger, he's got a giant pole, and a radio. Yeah. And because like it's supposed to kind of come from their masks. So if you see their helmet, their visors, and they'll put their hand up to their visor, and their weapon will form in their hands. And so the Blue Ranger, his is like a arrow pointing upward, and so it comes from, so he gets a bow and arrow from it. The Yellow Ranger is just a line, so you get a pole from it, or a radio in some other episodes. The Green Ranger gets a boomerang, because his is shaped like a V. The Red Ranger, his shape is like, it's not a circle, but it's like this odd shaped, like it's round on both ends, and it kind of dips inward in the middle a little bit. So it kind of reminds me of the ends of an old telephone. Um, but that's where he gets his weapon from. And then the Pink Ranger, her visor is a heart. And this poor girl, she she gets a mirror from it. She doesn't use it all the time, but her signature weapon are her earrings, which are basically grenades. And she'll pull it off the side of her helmet and chuck it at some foot soldiers, and then blow them to hell and back. Um, so they get that, um, and they have a very tank, and which is what it sounds like. It's a tank. Um, and let's see. There's something else that they have. What is it? They have a balloon. The very very Kikyun, and they don't use that. I mean, they use it, but it's not one of their signature machines. Um, so they get their orders. A they're from the defense organization, so they're not like some mystical force like you'll have in other seasons. Um, but you get um, well, I lost my train of thought. All right, see you next week. Or next month, or however long I put these episodes out. Um, yeah, they get their orders from their chief, their curry maker. His name is escaping me at the moment. Um, Maybe I should look up what his name is and try to act like I know what I'm talking about, because I clearly don't. Um, Edogawa, that's it. I kept wanting to say Conan, but that's not right. Edogawa. Um, the Conan reference is from Detective Conan, who Conan Edogawa. Yeah. No, his name is Gonpachi Edogawa, and so he's their chief. And another interesting part of this is that they have a trio of secret agents. So you got these three girls who are 007, 008, 009. And I always thought that this was an interesting aspect to the show, because they're not useless. Like they're very helpful, and they do their jobs pretty well, and they're spies. They go out and they gather intel, and they are able to assist the Go Rangers. And so it's a very nice aspect to it. Um, and like one of them, like 007 is probably like the most, you'll get her the most, um, because she's the one. She also works at the snack bar, and she has her younger brother there, and her younger brother is always asking Daita riddles, and Daita can't ever figure them out. um, but 007 is the one that you get the most of the time. She will. Um, she has filled in um, for Peggy as Momo Ranger from time a few times, um, and then she does also help pilot the Varidorin and the Varitank. So she's useful. She does pretty well with being there, and she's not just some faceless red shirt like you would have in Star Trek. So, um, so yeah, that's Go Ranger. Um, they set the they introduced well, Japan at the time to the Sentai series, um, and it's I think it's a pretty solid entry. Like it's a very solid start, because it it's a lot of fun to watch even now, like 50 years later. It was really fun to actually sit down and watch this. And when I was watching it, I started watching this before I started this idea of doing a podcast. Um, my main reason, well, I have several reasons. One of which was because I want to watch all of the Sentai. Number two, I'm watching them in order, and so I would start with this one, obviously. And one of the things that I want to do is, as I'm watching the show, I want to pay attention to the scenery behind them. And because this will give you the chance, or this gives me the chance to see Japan change around them. Because the Sentai seasons come out yearly now. Um, this one was 2 years, but it was the first of its kind. Um, so you have these franchise going on every year, and it allows you to see Japan change over time with the scenery and how Tokyo, like for example Tokyo, how it looks. Um, I've been to a few of their filming locations, because some of the times they film, in Tokyo and famous spots like Shibuya Station, and you can see it change. It looks a lot different than what it does than between then and now, um, and that's interesting for me. So, um, so other things about this show, you have the Go Rangers, the actors themselves. So, like I mentioned before with the Yellow Ranger, he left for a handful of episodes, and he got replaced until he came back. Um, and I'm going to mention him first, just because for one, I talked about it first, but also um, to also bring up the fact that he died in 1978, I think less than a year after the series ended. Um, uh, yeah, 78 is when I think he died. So about roughly a year after Go Ranger had ended, um, and which is it's an unfortunate thing, because he took his own life, because he was having trouble. If I remember correctly, he was having trouble getting anything that was not related to the Sentai genre of things. He was having trouble branching out, um, and like financial problems, I think, and his dwindling career, so it wasn't working out very well, and he couldn't. He was trying to get type. He was being typecast, and so um, so this would actually almost mirror Power Rangers in the sense that, so this is the first Sentai. They lose the actor who plays the Yellow Ranger in real life. And then Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the very first season, the actress who played the Yellow Ranger died in a car accident. Um, so it almost kind of mirrors each other a little bit. Um, so anyway, uh, so that was his actor, Hatakeyama Baku. He was replaced by Daruma Jiro, who came in to play Daigoro for those handful of episodes. he's still alive, and he usually shows up to the conventions or the anniversary um, events where they need the Go Rangers. Even though that he is not part of the original team, he was the replacement, but he is the stand-in, and people still like him. They still love his character still. There was nothing wrong with his character. Um, and then you have, so going to the Red Ranger is Makoto Naoya, and what I find interesting, and I'm always enjoying this part, is that he's from Saga Prefecture, and Saga Prefecture is one of those prefectures that nobody talks about, even Japanese people. They don't. There's nothing really to talk about Saga. There really is, but it's just not widely known like a lot of other places in Japan. Um, and so Saga can have the bragging rights, I guess, of saying that their one of their own is the first Red Ranger. Um, and he's still alive. And he shows up in a lot of the anniversary stuff. Um, he shows up several times in, um, throughout the franchise. I mean, not just like doing the real world conventions or anything, but he shows up as his character in stuff like Gokaija. He played his character, um, and so that's him. I'm not going to give into biographies with these guys, but just a quick rundown of these characters. Um, and then for the Blue Ranger, you have Miyauchi Hiroshi, and so he's the Blue Ranger, um, and I I find him interesting. Like not just his character, but his um, him as an actor, because he's one of the ones who he comes back as a different character. Um, so he he usually comes back for the anniversary stuff, but he's playing not the Blue Ranger character. He's usually set up as his um, Bamba Sokichi character, who was from the next season, Jaka, and that's usually who he shows up as. And so he's the Blue Ranger, and then he's Bamba, who is called Big One in Jaka. Um, and he shows back up in Orange as the Miura Naoyuki, the chief of staff character. Um, so he has some, you know, he's like he's like the Tommy Oliver or the Jason David Frank of Sentai, is that he's shown up, but the difference is that he plays different characters, which is something that Power Rangers does not do. Um, and it's not just him. There are other characters who do that throughout the franchise. So he's one of the Tommy Oliver, Jason David Frank types. Because there's another one that I will bring up later when I get to that season. Um, so I always enjoyed him. Um, I think he's a interesting person. So Ito Yukio, he is the Green Ranger. He also came back in another season called Battle Fever J. He was the Orange Ranger in that season. Um, and he's also still alive. So all of the Go Rangers are still alive with the exception of Baku. Um, Not a lot to say about him either, but just he comes back a few times. And then the Pink Ranger, Peggy, she's played by Komaki Lisa, and she So she's the sole female of the group, and quite the looker. You know, um, if I do say so. She's often wearing the very short shorts and showing off her legs. Um, so she comes back as another character in a later season. Um, in fact, she comes back in one season. She comes back and plays the villain in one season, and then she ends up being um, the suit actor as well as the voice for Miss America in Battle Fever J. The Battle Fever J Rangers are named after different countries, and I will get into that when I get to Battle Fever J. Um, but the reason for that is the actress who played Diane Martin, who is actually named Diane Martin. They used her real name in that. Um, she she is not, or she's like half Japanese. Um, if I is she half Japanese? Well, in any case, I don't remember if she's half Japanese or not. But she couldn't speak Japanese anyway. So, um, so they have this actress who can't speak Japanese. She has only a handful of lines each episode, and so Komaki Lisa came in and dubbed over her line. So whenever you hear her speak, you're listening to Komaki's voice. So she had come back as another, playing a different character, but using only her voice. So, so that's the Go Rangers. Um, want to say that's it for that. Um, I don't think there's anything else that really stands out from this. Um, Except that the very ending theme is, or the ending theme is very catchy. It can get stuck on your head pretty easily. Um, so if you are able to watch it, you should give it a shot. Um, don't let the datedness of it deter you, because it is. Um, I mean, it's from '75, but that's part of its charm, and it's fun to watch that era of Japan anyway. But that's what I like to do. I like to watch old stuff like that. Um, so that's it for Go Ranger. Um, it's very fun to watch, and next time, well, maybe not next episode next time, but the next episode where I talk about Sentai, it will be about Jakka Denjigetai, and that is the shortest Sentai. But I will talk all about that next time, whenever that will be. So if you're not around for that, I understand, because I'm very inconsistent with my uploads. But that is why they call me the Tayorinai Sensei.